Appreciate that, AB. Let me go to Khaleesi. Khaleesi, go. I know you want to respond to AB. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for that. So lots been said there. I'll try to cover some of these points very quickly. So not in any particular order, but one of the things that AB said was that the attacks failed. The Iranian attack failed. Well, that would be based on a premise that AB knows what they were trying to achieve. And I don't believe he does know what they were trying to achieve, because in my opinion, they were very, very successful. What they did, let me tell you, was they didn't use their top weapons, right? And the scale of Iran's attack, the diversity of locations they targeted, and the weapons they used forced Israel to uncover the majority of the anti-missile technology the US has across that region, including Israel. The Iranians didn't use any of their top weapons, and they just used a lot of what they used, but it wasn't new stuff that they used. And like, Israel doesn't know what Iran has in terms of weaponry, but Iran now, after this exercise, knows everything it needs to know about the anti-missile technology that Israel and US has across the region. So that's the first thing I'm going to say. Although I do appreciate you saying it was impressive, because I agree with you on that point, and I never thought I'd say that, AB, that it was very impressive. But their target was never to kill people, because not everyone's like Israel, right? They don't go for the kill. The second thing you said, which was your prophecy of what's going to happen, it made me chuckle while I was on mute. You said, I think they're going to hit some IRGC sites. Well, you know what? Everybody knows that. They've been doing that. They did it today. They did it on the 1st of April. So it's hardly like genius thought, is it? I think they're going to hit some IRGC
no, but
sites.
I meant in Iran. In Iran proper.
No, don't interrupt me. Don't interrupt me.
Just to clarify, you can continue.
You didn't say that. No, you didn't say that. No,
okay, now I'm saying it. In Iran.
Right? No, keep your mic mute. Keep your mic mute. Keep your mic mute. I did not interrupt the rubbish that was coming out of your mouth, so don't interrupt me.
Okay, well, guys, I'll let Khaleesi go. AB did go on for like 10 minutes. Go ahead, Khaleesi.
Yeah, and I had to sit there and listen to that vitriol, and I didn't interrupt. So yeah, they'll hit some IRGC sites. That was your prophetic kind of, sermon of what they're likely to do. It's hardly anything, is it really? They did that literally today. So you can clarify it now, because it does sound quite foolish when somebody repeats your words to you. Anyway. What else was I going to say? Yeah, this thing about the fact that they unmasked the resistance, I don't understand how anything was unmasked here. Iran said they were going to attack. Literally, they said, we're going to attack Israel. They gave notice that they were going to attack Israel. They knocked at the United Nations door and said, if you do not condemn in writing what happened at our embassy, and I'll come on to the embassy discussion in a minute, we will attack Israel. And then they went forward and attacked Israel. So I don't understand this nonsense statement of, for the first time ever, the resistance has been uncovered. Everybody knows that, the Houthis and Hezbollah and Hamas are funded. Like, everybody knows that. What has been unmasked here? The only thing that's been unmasked is Israel and America's defense capabilities in that region, because they came at it from all angles. So nothing was unmasked in terms of the resistance. They said upfront, not everyone's like Israel. Iran plays very straight. It said, we will attack. It gave notice. The CIA even said they will attack. Iran will attack. After the attack, there's nothing to be uncovered. It was transparent. They did it. They did it bravely. They did it boldly. And they stood tall and said, yes, we have done it. Do you want a second round? So I think there's a lot of nonsense there, to be honest with you. The other thing about the embassy thing. So this is interesting, because I watched the White House press conference about this. Matthew Miller was asked about whether or not it's an embassy. Do you know what? The White House didn't deny it. They just said, Israel's saying it's not. So we're just waiting for clarification. And the journalist pushed back on him twice and said, well, what kind of clarification are you looking for? I mean, you've got satellite images. You must have known it's an embassy. And the White House still didn't deny that it was an embassy. Then I saw the UN, the emergency meeting that happened the other day, and Iran sat there and said, it was an embassy. And nobody at the UN denied that building, which means all the countries that were there, nobody denied it was an embassy. The only country denying that it's an embassy is Israel. And with their track record, I would safely say 100% that was an embassy, because Israel never tells the truth about anything. And therefore, that's a differentiator between Israel and Iran. The last thing I want to say, and this is very, very quick, is I want to just talk about what's achieved from this. let me have a look very quickly, because I've got some figures, right, on this. So the cost to Iran for this whole exercise is between $38 to $62 million, depending on what analysts you look at, right? The cost to Israel, as per the Israeli military reports, was over 4 million shekels, which is $1.2 billion. And that's without the 100 warplanes flying 6 hours plus the fuel, plus the weapons. And it doesn't take into account the allies' cost, the Jordan, US, UK, French, Egypt, Saudis, others involved. One Arrow missile used to intercept an Iranian ballistic missile costs millions, while the cost of one David sling is a lot of money, as you well know. So I think when you look at it financially, when you look at it strategically, when you look at it from a reputation perspective, from any perspective, Israel lost abysmally. And I think Iran came out looking like a very, very strategic winner.
Thank you for that, Khaleesi. Before we go to other speakers, I did forget to mention to the audience to please retweet the space. So we will have audience for this great debate. We have some great speakers on stage. It's very informative. Khaleesi, I would like to replay to you for a second regarding the financial aspect of this, because I was listening to what you were saying, and I was actually thinking the same when an attack was happening. I also thought that strategically it was very well organized, but ballistically they had a lot of malfunctions, and I think they did a little bit underestimated the air defense system, because I think they were mostly counting on the David sling and the Iron Dome, and they didn't really calculate, and this is just my assumption, obviously I'm not bringing this from anywhere but my own opinion, I don't think that they really calculated that we will activate the 4 defense system, including laser one, the ELTA one, and they also didn't miscalculated the intervention of our allies around us as well, and the US intervention. So I think this one caught them by surprise. There were also a lot of malfunction with the launches of the rockets themselves. Now, Amir has mentioned before that they did take older cruise missiles like Qadr and so on. So it would make sense that these are not like the most sophisticated one. And actually, these are the same one that I would have chosen in an attack like this. That is obviously also part of its plan is also to test the air defense systems. But one thing regarding the financial part, I was thinking about it as well, and I was looking, probably you saw the same articles as I did as the costs came out of how much did it cost Iran to basically do this attack, and how much did it cost Israel to defend itself. And I'm sure you have the numbers. This is why I take very seriously what you're saying. But if you calculate, for example, even 15% of these missiles that were launched at Israel, or even 4 UAVs, would actually get to their destination and cause the destruction that they would have, it would actually, the repair costs will cost much more than an entire day of defense for this kind of an attacks. So I would like to take this in calculation as well. Also, the attack of what we saw, like in the scale of what we saw financially, this is not something you could do obviously on a daily basis. So when we're looking at cost, it doesn't mean that this is going to be the cost every day now for the rest of our lives. This was a one-time cost, and believe me, I would love to sit with you on the number at some point, because I think this would be, just for the sake of discussion, it would be very interesting. Really, the repair costs of whatever damage it would be done would cost much more than 1,000 Tamir missiles that are $50,000, between $50,000 and $100 a piece. So, yeah, would you like to respond on that? Because it would be fair to give you the chance.
Yeah, no, look, you know what? I mean, we can only go by estimates of these costs, depending on who's provided them. A lot of the costs that I actually just quoted there have come out from American analysts. But the range, again, it's quite broad. So I agree with you, Voice, and it's not something that could be sustained on a daily basis by either Iran, and most definitely not Israel. I say America, same thing actually, because it's America funding it, isn't it? So I don't think the allies will fund this.
Yeah, sorry, the US.
It is, but the finances, but the finances joint in terms of strategy, but we know the finances come from America, right? It's not like Israel's getting this. The military budget comes from America, but the allies as well. I don't think they'd be able to sustain this on a daily basis. So I think you're right about that in terms of the cost, but on the basis, this exercise, the cost, what the analysts are saying is it's cost Israel a lot more. Now, Israel doesn't seem to be concerned about the cost, and neither is Iran, but I'm sure, and I agree with your point there, that obviously it's not sustainable, and they both probably felt the cost to some degree, in that, you know, it isn't something that over a period of time, you know, you've done it and that's it. The other thing I want to say is, and you made this point and it made me think of it, that the thing, like when you say some of it malfunctioned and some of it didn't hit, I think, and I firmly was so kind of relieved about this. I don't think Iran wanted to actually hit any targets where civilians were killed. And they kind of, you know, initially when they started the strike and their statements came out, they made it very, very clear that it was military sites. If anything they were going to aim for, it was not going to be civilians. They did not want to kill civilian people. So that's massive for me. That's, you know, that's like, okay, you know what, respect for that. You didn't go and do a strike on someone's embassy. And if you want to dispute, not you, but if somebody wants to dispute it's an embassy, they still went and kill the leadership of, you know, a sovereign nation. And Iran didn't do that. That's the differentiator. But on the cost side, I agree. It's a very broad scale as well. So we don't exactly know how much it's cost.
And also one last point on that, Khaleesi. The one thing that is not mentioned, that Rafael, actually the company which produces most of these air defense systems, that is a joint venture between the US and Israel. Actually, the day after the attack, the orders, the contracts that the company has received, I would love to share these numbers with you, but this is whack. Like this has doubled the cost that Israel had spent on that day, or the US, for the sake of your argument, on that day on the air defense system. So I find it quite interesting. It was almost like, I wouldn't like to be insensitive with this, but it was almost like a commercial for the Israeli air defense system. So I don't know if Iran was intending to that when they launched the attack. I don't think they thought about it, but I think it's an interesting detail to discuss. And I would like to go back to you on that, but we do have hands. So if
I'll just say one
go
thing,
ahead.
Voice. That's not a commercial, in my opinion, for the Israeli air defense system. It's a commercial for the military-industrial complex. That's it.
That's fair to say. That's fair to say.
Tomato, tomato. You just said the same thing in different ways. Of course.
AB, behave, please.
Yeah, but nobody asked your opinion, AB, right?
Are you saying Israel owns the military-industrial complex?
No, that means there's a military-industrial complex in every country, and Israel's military-industrial complex
is owned by Israel.
Well, Israel's military-industrial complex was on display that day.
No, because she meant I think she was indicating the U.S. military-industrial complex. So you're saying Israel owns it?
No. I said Israel's, like Rafael, the company that she mentioned, and you know, Israeli aircraft industry.
I didn't mention it. I didn't mention the commercial.
No,
for the
I meant
military-industrial
I
complex.
said Rafael.
No,
Yeah, that's
she
fair to say.
exactly. Voice mentioned it, so I was just saying yes. So there's no difference between saying she said the military-industrial complex because Khaleesi was trying to sound more conspiratorial, which is what she does.
AB, behave.
No, AB, I agree with you. I agree with you. I agree with you.
Smashed you, right, AB? So shut your mic and sit tight.
Guys,
AB, I mean, AB is telling us Israel owns the military-industrial complex. Let me go to
Israel. In Israel, yes. Go ahead.
In the US. So coming to I'm joking, AB, all good. Right, let me go to Henry. Henry, one of the questions I want to ask you, and actually I want to hear it from you, and then I want to hear something from Rosenberg as well, the same question. Just to give the audience the two arguments from the both sides, and then I just do want to hear what it is. So one of the arguments being made from the Israeli side is that 95% of the missiles were intercepted. Or 99, so very different narrations. Yeah, that's why there's different narrations. Some say 95, 97, 99, something between that, right? And on the other hand, people are saying from the other side, now a much smaller number was intercepted. And an example they give is 1991, when Saddam launched weapons, Israel claimed 95% had been intercepted, and later MIT showed that it was only 5%. Now, one of the claims that is being made by people who are from the other side is that why is there no images from the bases that were military bases that were attacked coming out from Israel? It's because the argument is that they've been severely damaged. Henry, what's your thoughts on this? And then I do want to hear Rosenberg.
Suleiman, actually, IRGC posted an aerial image of one of the sites that were struck, and it was significant.
Yeah, I'll go there. Yeah.
Send me that. But go ahead, Henry.
First and foremost, there's a couple of things that AB said that I'd like to debunk because, I mean, they were just ridiculous. First and foremost, Shiaism is not an ethnicity. It is a sect of Islam that is followed by over 100 million Muslims. Second of all, in terms of the legitimacy of Iran, and again, this is not from a biased perspective, this is just facts-based. The supreme leader of Iran is elected from the Guardian of Experts, or the Council of Experts, excuse me. They're elected on 8-year terms. And those are also elected from within the people. And then there was the referendum of 1979 that established this government and this council. And the United Nations also recognizes that the Islamic Republic of Iran is the legitimate government. So let's go there. In terms of the F-15, F-16, F-20, F-35, that it's going to be an easy sail, it's just going to pass through airspaces. Let's just look at the numbers. For the F-15 or F-16 to get through, it's got a maximum distance of, let's just say, 3,000 kilometers. I'll even round it up for you. Now, it's light, and that's assuming the fact that all airspace in front of it, including Syria, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and so on and so forth, Kuwait, is open to it. Now, what it will have to do is it'll have to reroute itself around neighboring airspaces or those that will allow it and refuel in midair, causing it to not only slow down its delivery time, but also allow the S-300, S-400 missile systems, or whatever is waiting for it in Syria and in other areas to target it, right? So, and then in terms of the deterrence factor of Israel is stronger now than it's ever been. I would just like to point the fact that Israel has said to Lebanon that we will invade you on March 15th. It is now March 8th and April 18th, I believe, in some parts of the world where I'm at. And the Israelis did try to do an incursion into Lebanon yesterday, and they were repelled. So I would just like to ask, from a deterrence aspect, who is really stronger than who? Now, going back to Suleiman's point, Suleiman, I made the joke earlier that the Israeli air defense system should be used against COVID, not against Iranian missiles, because they have a better effect than hand sanitizer, which is 99.9% killing of germs. And whether they shot down 99%, 90%, 200%, we need to keep in mind two things. One, the Israelis basically had the entire Western world with them, and then among them some Arab countries as well, with naval ships, air forces, very advanced. I will give the Israelis this: they have very advanced air defense systems, and some that, as Voice stated, that have not been used, right? And the Iranians, despite all of this, and this is according to Scott Ritter, this is not according to me, inside the Netzarim Air Base, inside of South Israel, that is the most fortified airspace in the entire world, the seven medium-range ballistic missiles that were not even supposed to get there, got there. And this is under the supervision of the Iron Dome, the Patriot missiles, the Arrow, and so on and so forth, and the advanced radar systems that are there. So the point being is, yes, the more you send out, the more you're going to return back. This is simple probability and math. But the message that was intended to be sent was received loud and clear. The Israelis and the Iranian admitted that there was 3 locations, both in the north and then towards the south, Ramon Air Base and Netzarim, and then towards Mount Hebron, and Safed, and so on and so forth, that were targeted. And the missiles that there were launched actually reached there. So just wanted to clarify those points and kind of give my perspective. And by the way, the Knesset is in Jerusalem. Thank you.
And man, you forgot that they
Well,
had
thank you for admitting
days
it.
to
Thank
prepare
you.
for that. They were not shocked like the Hamas attack.
I want to go to Rosenberg. Rosenberg, you had my question, the same question to you. You had the both perspectives. I do want to hear your opinion. Go ahead, Rosenberg.
Yeah, I have no idea what happened on Israeli bases. Nobody invited me to inspect them, and I'm no expert on what occurred as to damage in Israel specifically. What I can say is it's easy to say AB's prophecy is false, and Khaleesi does this while not attacking Patrick's absurd prophesizing about the future of the United States relationship with the Middle East. Patrick's dream to see Israel cut off from the West is not a foreign policy prediction. It's, I think, Patrick's highly flawed belief that alliances are forged by economic interests only. And if they were, Israel would still be the best ally in that region. But if that's the case, there would be reasons Saudi Arabia and France would not want to be
$1 billion
would
in 2
not want to
hours.
be on. I'm going to just say my part. I'll be short.
Just let him
Would
finish,
not be on
please. Go
Israel's
ahead,
side. And
Rosenberg.
by the way, if we want to talk about Iran's history of terror, I posted in the Nest a really great, or it's called the blue pill or purple pill, whatever, a great long, I'm not going to read it because it's like 20 minutes of reading on the stage, which is not going to happen. History of Iranian terrorism provided by the State Department. If you believe the State Department and you think their history is accurate, I do. I think there's a lot of great experts who put this stuff together, despite the flaws in the current Biden regime, as I call it. But Patrick's dream is not a reality. The fact is, Iran will always be relevant, but not the authoritarian mirror of Iran we see today. We're talking the Great Persia. We're talking Israel also will always be relevant. And both of these countries, both of these peoples can be allies, just like the United States is an ally with Israel and the United Kingdom and France, because there's a shared culture. And what Patrick fails to do is define what the United States is. The United States is a constitutional republic. That's the first element. The second element, that secures individual rights. And the third element, endowed by its creator. Those rights are secured by a creator, no matter the religion you choose or the atheism you may choose. And it sounds like nihilism from some speakers. But the bottom line, and I'll say it one last time, the United States is defined as a constitutional republic securing individual rights endowed by our creator. That is what a Western country does. That is a Western democracy, right? Now, not all of Europe is a republic, obviously, and not all countries are constitutional. But at the end of the day, shared values like the United Kingdom and the United States, or France and Israel, or France and the United States, are based on values that believe there are individual rights, not authoritarian regimes that should run people's lives. If we say that's okay, that we want to be allies with authoritarian regimes because we have an economic interest in the future or they have more oil, and I'm not saying the United States hasn't done that. I'm not saying the United States hasn't played games in its diplomacy in this giant country with the way its intelligence operates. It hasn't played games in South America and the Middle East to try to get the best benefit. But at the end of the day, allies are based on cultures. The same reason I wear a hat that says I love Costa Rica doesn't mean Costa Rica benefits me economically. I love Costa Rica for many reasons that have nothing to do with Costa Rica doing anything for me. I love St. Lucia. I love the people of St. Lucia. I've been there. It's amazing. I wear a hat that says St. Lucia. But that alliance, that desire to help another group of people has nothing to do with just economic interest. It has to do with cultural values as well. And if we believe in securing individual rights and securing a constitution, and we believe there's something more than just nihilism and just money, right, then we should support, I think, countries that don't harm their people. To even be on a stage with folks supporting a regime like the IRGC, that just doesn't just harm Israel, right? It doesn't just harm the West, doesn't just have a long documented history of terrorism, but hurts Iranians and hurts Arabs and hurts Israeli Arabs, right? We're not just talking Jews. 2 million Israeli Arabs in Israel. They harm not just.
And Rosenberg, the one person.
Go ahead. I'm going to yield to AB if I can.
No, just for this part, you can continue. You can continue.
No, you're going to yield to me because you
Hold on one
mentioned me,
second.
but I'll
One
wait.
second. One sentence.
I'm not the host.
Children, please, I request you. This is a very, very serious topic. There is a war going on. This is not who has the loudest voice here, okay? I would like Rosenberg to continue. AB, if you do have to speak, please keep it short. We have other speakers on stage, and I also want to go to people that haven't been spoken yet, like Vaughn. So please land your plane so we can continue. We will always come back to you, I promise.
No, it was just Rosenberg was kind enough. It literally was a sentence and a half just to underline the point that he was making about that they hurt others, not just Jews. That the one individual person, military or civilian, that was injured in this attack, harmed in this attack by the illegal occupying Islamic Republic of Iran was a 10-year-old Israeli Muslim, Bedouin girl. So they managed to almost kill a 10-year-old girl. Kudos to you, Islamic Republic. I say sarcastically, but yeah, Rosenberg. Sorry,
and I'll land my plane. It's not hard to choose between authoritarianism and non-authoritarianism. Am I saying the Biden regime? And by the way, when we talk about countries, it's easy to sit there and go the United States, America. The fact is, American people are freedom loving. I know that sounds silly. It sounds really like overly patriotic, but 58% of Americans are very supportive of Israel. And like almost 60%, and this has been like not just this year. I mean, we're talking historically since the 70s. Pew Research polls have shown Americans support countries that are free, that believe in freedom. Is America the freest country? Probably not. Is France the freest country? Probably not. I don't think Western Europe or the United States or any country can claim it's the freest. A government can't be 100% free, and that's unfortunate. But we can't have anarchy either. But to support 58% of Americans that really just support themselves. I mean, there's no one that Iran's supporting. I'm talking the regime, but the Iranian regime. Iranian regime is not looking out for the Iranian people. It's not looking out for the Arabs. It's not looking out for Muslims. And we see also from many Muslims in the United States, 40% of Muslims in the United States are I would even argue pro-Israel. I think I was reading a poll earlier about support for Israel among American Muslims. Most human beings don't want to be under authoritarian rule. And to have to make an argument on this is just absurd, I think.
Right.
Can I
This
respond
man
Just
briefly?
disrespected my
Suli,
country for
just
20
in
Suli,
terms
minutes.
of
Suli, I was
what is
called out.
one second. I'm gonna go to you guys. Khaleesi and Patrick were called out, so I'm gonna give them a chance to respond for sure. Rosenberg, I did read your what you posted. I read the overview, and the main argument there is that Iran essentially is part of the Axis. So many of the countries it mentions, it is that its involvement in those countries. So again, you haven't provided the evidence which you claimed about Iran's terrorism in the West or terrorist attacks. On the other hand, I have been sent evidence of ISIS-led, which many people argue is Israeli-US-led attacks throughout the West. So I just wanted to clarify the evidence that have been sent.
Ramon, can I just jump in before you go to Patrick, please? I'll be 30 seconds because my name was mentioned in terms
Go
of
ahead, and then I'll go to
why
Patrick
I
because Patrick's name
address.
was also mentioned.
So Rosenberg was like, oh, Khaleesi didn't address any of the stuff that Patrick said, but she addressed A.B. Sampson. Well, you know what? Back at you, because you didn't address any of the vitriol that A.B. Sampson said, and you tried to tear strips off Patrick, but you failed. The reason I didn't address what Patrick said was because it made sense, it was logical, and it was based on truth. I smashed all of A.B. Sampson's points. I noticed you didn't come back to me at that. Very quickly, if the Iranian people, the Iranian government's not looking out for the Iranian people, neither is the American government. If it was the land of the free, you wouldn't have ADL, APAC funding politicians to the tune of hundreds of thousands. You wouldn't have someone like DeSantis going to Israel to sign away Florida's First Amendment rights. So please, spare us the fairy tale land of what's going on in America. We see it. We know protests are being arrested in Israel and in America. Democracy allows people to protest. America doesn't, and neither does Israel. I'll
I
land,
get to
Patrick.
respond, Suleiman.
I want to go to
Right?
Patrick. No, I need to go to Patrick because you mentioned his name, and then I'll come back to you,
You
Pat
got it.
Rosenberg. I will give you a
Before
chance to
you go,
respond.
Sully, 1 second. Guys, I please remind kindly all the speakers on the stage to not post anything in the nest. If you guys really need to post something there, please DM me or one of the team and we will consider, but please do not pin anything in the nest on your own judgment. Thank you.
Thanks for that, guys. Patrick, I wanted to come to you. I know you want to respond because your name was mentioned, but in addition to that, Rosenberg mentioned about Western values. One of the arguments against that, or one of the many arguments against that, is the fact that in Israel, you don't have that. You don't have one of the enshrined Western values, which is all man is equal. There is a system, a dual system for Jews and non-Jews. What's your? I would like to hear your response on that, and then please add in whatever you wanted to respond about.
Sure, Sully.
Sure.
That's a huge. Or are you talking to Patrick? Is this Patrick?
No, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
Oh
talking to
Patrick.
no.
me. Sorry,
Okay, let Patrick.
Rosenberg.
Let Patrick go.
Sorry.
Rosenberg, you talked for like 10 minutes, so let
You're
Patrick
gonna have
respond.
to
Yeah.
sit this one out. Yeah.
I know you did. I felt like it was 20 as well.
Yeah, so that's a great point, Suleiman. Just before I address that point, is kind of rich that Rosenberg's talking about freedom and liberty, and wasn't it Rosenberg who just tweeted that the FBI should go and arrest Mays and Syrian Girl, who both are regulars on these panels, on these spaces, for their support for terrorism. So, and he's also calling for the extradition of Syrian Girl. He said the FBI can pick you up in a matter of minutes in Australia. They can pluck you from your hut. I quote Rosenberg just yesterday or the day before. And
Guys, please avoid the personal attack. This is the last time that I have to address that. I don't care what are your opinions, but I do respect everybody on stage. Please respect Mario, respect the space, respect us, and respect yourselves above all. Please stay on point. Go ahead, Patrick.
those are all facts. Those are all facts. I'm sorry. He did tweet that. He did say that. They're all there. I even have screenshots down in the comment section.
No, we are not doing this. I'm really, really sorry. Like, please, Patrick, you have so many intelligent things to say. We can please go past this. This is a serious matter, okay? Sully, help me out here.
Suleiman,
No, I respect
Go ahead,
voice. Sorry, voice. I respect what you're saying. I'm just saying because
That was double mute. Patrick, just move on from Rosenberg. Just get to the main point at hand.
okay,
People
okay.
can check Rosenberg's profile themselves.
Exactly. Thanks, Sully.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Patrick.
Look, this idea that Israel's a democracy, and the previous speaker, whose name I shall not mention, was talking about shared values and how we have these shared values in the West. Well, one of the shared values is we all agreed after World War II that we would oppose genocide. And right now you have a situation where Israel is guilty and has been carrying out an active genocide for the last 6 months with the full support of the United States of America, their government, their taxpayers, as have Britain, as have Germany, and other states. The world cannot rally around those types of values. We rejected those values after the Second World War. So this idea that Israel is not only a non-democracy, it is a genocidal regime that has gone septic for the region of the Middle East. And I think the world is now seeing that, and this is the beginning of the end of the European settlers project known as Israel. And I think everyone sees that except for a few people that are going to be late. The penny will eventually drop for them as well, but they're kicking and screaming all the way to the exit door.
I'll just respond quickly.
Rosenberg.
If I'm late, I'll be right, though. And I am late sometimes, but I'm always right, Patrick. As a federal criminal defense lawyer, let me just be very clear. Words are important, Patrick, and words mean a lot. If I say somebody should be investigated on a public posting, that means
Well, Rosenberg, we're not going to do that, right? We already stopped Patrick from relaying the argument. Now, if you want to go into details about that, then he has to be allowed to explain it all, and we stopped him or muted him like 2-3 times. So people can look at your profile. They can look at whether you are a person who tries to get people in trouble or not. Like, we're not going to talk about this on the space. Please move on to the other point.
yeah, I just don't like the implication.
I mean, people could check your profile themselves. Go ahead, Rosenberg. That was double mute. Go ahead. Make your main point.
I'll make my point. So, as a federal criminal defense lawyer, I'm up against the government like every day. I'm up against the feds every day. So I'm not here saying, oh, they're so great and everyone's so great with the threat of nobody should have to live in fear of any law enforcement agency, especially in Iran, right? Nobody should be stoned for being a woman who doesn't wear the right kind of dress, or be brought before a Sharia court and murdered because they don't follow some kind of silly law that takes away rights.
This man is just disrespecting my country for 30 minutes. I have to respond to this guy at some point.
Patrick. I'm just going to respond to Patrick. It's false to say there's a genocide. I'm not going to get into this deep. The International Court of Justice already made a ruling on this, and so I reject the falsehood, and it does not have support in fact or in law. You can post also the images. People can do that on their pages, and they can post false images as they do. War is nasty. War is ugly. Every time a Palestinian or an Israeli or any human being dies or is killed as a result of war, we should all be sad and not rejoice. It would be nice if there were countries that did not want war with the West. And that's where I stand.
It's called apartheid. That's what it's called in Israel. It's apartheid. You missed that word when you were giving your grand explanation there. And it's not war, it's genocide. When there's over 1,000 people killed. Your Defense Secretary, Lloyd Austin, was asked on camera, there's a video, go search it, how many women and children have been killed in Gaza. And this was about a month ago. And he said 25,000 women
and then the Pentagon
killed.
walked. Why don't you ever tell the truth ever? And then the Pentagon walked back his comments the next day, literally the next day.
Yeah, of course, because Israel whipped them.
Oh yes, of course,
that's what happens.
because the largest superpower
was the number.
Okay, I would like
guys. I'm with AB. I don't believe the Hamas numbers as well. I think likely it's 100,000. But anyway, it's likely 100,000 that have been killed. But
we're not going to.
Let me move on.
I'm really sorry.
Let's move on. Right. Okay. So I'm agree with AB. He loved it. He gave me a thumbs up. Then he went thumbs down immediately. So you got confused. Let me go to.
Let's go to Vaughn and then to Sam. No. Wait.
Yeah. Let's go to Vaughn.
Let's refresh the stage a
Vaughn,
bit.
God.
He just disrespected my country for 30 minutes. Can't I respond to that?
No.
Look, we've had people respond.
By the way, no, I sent you a DM.
He just disrespected my country.
Who did he send a DM
to? Voice.
Oh, voice. Oh, listen, some tactics going on there. Like, let's go to Von.
Hi guys, pleasure to be here. I just wanted to speak about the shoot down rate of the missile strike that everybody's talking up one way or the other. 99%, 95%. It doesn't really matter all that much. They achieved saturation and managed to penetrate the defense shield. So that's kind of the point. The fact is that they were able, they demonstrated they were able to overwhelm the defense grid, and are able to do it at will, basically, if they want to. That, I believe, is the point of this. This is why you see very little damage. It's meant as to prove a point and to provide an off-ramp where it's like, we could stop escalating here. We satisfied ourselves. It's an adequate response to bombing the consulate. You could claim victory by shooting down most of the projectiles, and it could end here without breaking into a wider war. Now, I don't think where anybody's going to be that quite adult about this and end it here. But you have to kind of look at things with what the intent might be, because I don't think if their intent was to cause as much damage as possible, they might have done like what almost everyone else in the region does, target civilians, target residences. They hit Nevatim, for fuck's sake. We all know what it is. It's an airbase in the middle of the desert. They hit that. That should be clear to everyone. And once again, 99%, 95%, it doesn't matter. Missiles go through. That's a point. When you're launching an airstrike into AD coverage, you account for the AD doing its job. You fire enough projectiles to saturate it, and then plus as many as you need to hit whatever you need to hit. So celebrating air defense that is its job when a missile strike is taking that into account is no, you're not celebrating anything, and you probably don't understand how this works. As for, because I hear this a lot, the ICJ making a ruling, blah, 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 blah. I don't take a side on this one way or the other, but unless they made a ruling since their statement on the 26th of February, they have not yet made a ruling. Let's stick to the truth, please. And with that, I yield.
Vaughn, question on that, right? We saw the fact that, so a question I have in my mind, right? We saw the fact that it took a number of countries to repel the missiles that were sent by Iran, including Israel's own defense system. And at the same time, we also heard reports that this was going to happen days in advance. So why was this done by Iran when everybody knew it was going to happen? Unless you wanted to make sure that the most minimal happened, or is there some other reason?
That's also a good point you bring up. They telegraphed it for a week ahead of time. Remember when the U.S. was going to strike back at Iran over proxies attacking military positions, and they telegraphed it for like 2 weeks beforehand to give everyone involved a chance to prepare to minimize damages? That's what this is for. If they wanted to cause as much damage as possible, they would have done it without warning. They wouldn't have taken the time to. There's all these stories about how they sent messages to the U.S. via Turkish partners and whatnot. You do not do that unless it's symbolic in intent. That the Americans.
Just a quick question on that, Vaughn.
Pardon?
Just a quick one. Sorry, I'm interrupting you.
Yeah,
again, options. Is it that they want? Is it that Iran leaked it on purpose, which would be a warning? Or is it that American intelligence is so good that they managed to find it out? Or is it that Iranian intelligence is so weak that they leaked, like it basically got out? Like, what is your thoughts?
My thoughts is neither, because none of them, because they publicly telegraphed that they were going to do something, and they said themselves that they relayed information to the Americans through their Turkish partners and other partners diplomatically. So they did this. It's out on purpose. They wanted, and you have to assume they wanted everyone involved to know, so that, look, they had to respond to their consulate getting blown up. They had to. No, I don't think anyone disputes that they had to do something, and this allows them to do something without actually risking escalation, because if everyone knows, you can prepare for it.
Appreciate that, Von Haller. I know you were banging those ups and downs with them with the emoji. So jump in. What's your thoughts?
I do agree with Von that the fact that they advertised it much earlier, they advised most of their they advised quite a few Arab countries of what they were up to, and according to Israeli reports, Israeli newspapers, some of these Arab countries actually relate to the Americans, because in theory, Iran told Saudi Arabia and others what they were up to and where they were hitting, and some of these countries who said that we won't be involved in this war, even though they were maybe, but under American pressure, they actually told the Americans the details that they have, so they passed on the intelligence. So this was advertised for purpose, which is knowing that it will be leaked, basically. So that suggests, and like we've been saying throughout, this was not a case of going in to destroy or kill. This was a case of setting a new rules of engagement. This was a case of setting deterrence against Israel for future, because you give Israel an inch, it takes a mile, and they've done that. Whether they shut down, fine, they shut down 200%, not 100%, not 90%. It doesn't matter. This was not intended to do, and plus, at the end of the game, at the end of the night, Israel learned nothing of what Iran has, because Iran used old stock on purpose. That shows you that what the intent was. Whereas Iran learned a lot from from the Israelis and the allies. It learned where the positions were, where the interceptions were coming from, what missiles were used, what interception systems were used. It learned quite a lot, whereas Israel still knows, is more blinded. As for Rosenberg, he did the emotional blackmail about the Arabs and the Muslims, and how bad Iran was, etc., etc., etc. And then there was, I think it was Rosenberg who mentioned the one Bedouin girl. Sadly, no one should get injured, but one Bedouin girl got injured. I mean, this is very, very rich, coming from the fact that the state of Israel has already killed about 17,000 Palestinian kids and hasn't batted an eyelid. And now we're all supposed to sit here and cry about one child who, again, we don't want anybody injured, but one child got injured. When you compare that to 17,000, I don't think that's a point to take into consideration. So yes, I agree, Israel. I agree with Von. Iran was intending for this to be known. It was playing by the rules. Usually in wars like these, we've seen it in previous wars when there's a big attack happening. They do give an advance warning, but points have to be made, and a response had to be done by Iran. There was no way out of this one. Now, if you look at it, both sides, it was Israel that aggressed first, and Iran responded. You want to argue about whether that annex was part of the mission or not. It is part of the mission. It's an annex, but it's part. I know it. I've been through it, and I've been in it. It is part of the mission, so that's diplomatic territory. So that's considered diplomatic territory. That's one. Second is that
It's funny there were no diplomats were killed in diplomatic territory. It's interesting. Not a single diplomat.
It's funny that you don't know what a consular annex is, AB. Sit down, let us finish.
Interesting.
Diplomats being killed. I'm saying
or
the territory
or
is
assistants
part,
or
the
secretaries.
territory is
It
part
was only
of the
high-ranking
diplomatic
Iranian
mission.
officials. That's interesting.
AB, my G. Let her finish. Well, not my G, actually. But AB, let her finish, bruv.
Oh,
Like,
come on.
calm down.
You're a closet Zionist. I am your G.
Oh my God, that is the lowest thing you can ever
my
say to
little
me,
Zionist
bruv.
buddy.
Why would you go there? Oh my God, now he's got voice mute him. He's getting personal and doing low blows.
I would
Hala, go
love
ahead.
not to mute anyone, actually. But yeah, go ahead.
You guys made me lose my last point, but there you go. It'll come back to me. So I'll
I'm
leave
sorry,
it at that.
Hala.
AB, no, it's not you, voice. It's AB. I mean, he does it on purpose. He just loves to interfere and to butt in. And when he's talking, no, don't give me those. It doesn't work.
I think he's just
seriously.
passionate, but we can all move forward from that.
He's a skilled operator.
I just wanted to tell you one thing, Hala. I wouldn't like to touch anything that has to do with the numbers in Gaza right now, just because, from the sole reason that I think that it's not relevant. I also don't think that there is a connection between a person getting hit with the IRGC attack or Gaza. Like, these two are not connected, at least not on that matter. I think loss of life is sad, and is a bad thing no matter what, no matter if it's one person, 1,000 people, 15 people. Lives cannot be measured with numbers. So I don't think we should discuss.
No, but that child, is that child dead? Is that child
No,
dead?
No,
Sully,
that
she's not
child,
even dead.
Oh.
But
that
she
child was
is
Oh.
in a very severe condition. The only dad that we know so far were the 3 Jordanian civilians, and I have no update what actually happened there.
And the
Well, we do.
yeah, and that was basically
They were
people
killed.
are
They were
blaming.
killed
One
by
second, Hala.
one of the whatever missiles or
UAVs.
drones that was
UAVs.
intercepted
Yeah.
and dropped, and that's how they got killed. And no
Yeah.
voice.
So people are
I
blaming the
agree with
Jordanian
you.
king for that, isn't it? To say that why did he give his airspace to Israel? So in
No,
terms
that's not
of
his government. Okay, let's
That's not
move
how
on.
that
Let's move on.
works.
no, I'm saying that's what people are doing. I'm not saying that's my position.
Okay,
I'm telling
okay,
you
sorry,
what the other
sorry.
perspective is, right? So so coming back to it, no, so just to back Harla up a bit, the thing is, the reason Harla mentioned it is because she's trying to demonstrate that there's a level of, in her view, hypocrisy. Like if you're talking about the pain or injury of one child due to the conflict, then what about a huge number? Like 17,000 is probably 40, 50,000. Injured is probably 200,000, 300,000 who are severely injured. I think that kind of point is important when you make such an elaborate conversation about one injured child. So I do understand where she was coming from there. I want to. Sorry, Voice. You wanted to go to someone, didn't you? Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. We do have a new voice on stage, and I will go to AB, I will go to Omar, I will go to Sam, I will go to Amir. No worries, I will get to all of you. I know that's a very heated discussion, and I would like to change the air a little bit with a new speaker, if that's okay with you guys. But please do stay on stage. Bara, hello, welcome to the stage.
Thanks for sorry. Just before we move on, AB and Rosenberg they just did a number on Iran. I just want to be very short, and
Uh,
they, I
Amir,
just don't, just very short. I just
you
want to
have
give,
30 seconds. You have 30
yeah,
seconds, I
yeah.
swear. Okay.
Just a brief history of Iran-US relations after US and Israel being just angels and the best democratic havens in the whole world. So 1953, Iranian coup d'etat attempt by CIA just totally ruined our country. 1988, Iranian Air Flight 655 hit by the US, and they didn't even apologize for it. They just cooked 300 people in the air, and the airplane dropped in the Gulf. 2001, Axis of Evil speech of George Bush after we helped them fighting Taliban in Afghanistan. And this perfect US country, this heaven of the democracies, they attacked both our neighbors in the East and the West. So why
Okay.
shouldn't we be enemies with these guys? And just the last point, being suffocated with hundreds of bases. And actually, in 2015, we just said, okay, let's just solve our problems. We just don't want to be called evil again. And what happened? In 2017, they just broke their promises and quit the nuclear deal. So we are not evil. The
Thank you,
evil is
Amir.
somewhere else.
Thank you. Thank you
Thanks for
very
that,
much.
Amir. Thank you for that, Amir. And just to say that 53, I wouldn't call it attempted. I mean, it was successful, wasn't it? I mean, evidence clearly shows that. But anyway, go ahead, Sam.
No, we had actually Bara. I'm sorry, Sam. We had Bara, and I interrupted you to let Amir have his.
Oh, were you going to go to Bara? Sorry, I thought you were
So
going to go to Sam. Go
Bara,
ahead,
I'm
Voice.
sorry that you had to wait. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to join you guys here, and thanks for. I mean, I've been trying to go back and forth until it finally worked. I think there are a couple of things here. And I'm just sharing my my opinion. Uh, uh, I think first of all, to begin with, is it very provocative to attack a consulate? Yes. I mean, if you do decide that actually consulates do not enjoy immunity, then I think we are setting in a very dangerous precedent here. Now, saying that, I'm very much aware of the history of the context and what the IRGC have been doing across the region. And I think this is where it becomes a little bit, I would say, tricky, because the RGC works in a very interesting in a very interesting manner. They have non-state armed groups that are operating in multiple countries, and yet at the same time, it is a force that is that has a uniform. They officially are part of the Iranian state, but that sometimes also they don't want to. They are willing to operate in places where they are not supposed to be operating. Like, for example, operating in Yemen, operating in Bahrain, operating in countries that is basically you're not supposed to be entering. You don't have enjoy even diplomatic relationship with those countries. So it is an interesting force when you see how it's being designed, and how it's the format on how the RDC is being have been operating actually for quite a long time. Now, while I'm saying that did the US in its history did terrible things in Iran, in Iraq, and other countries? Yes. But for me as a person who comes from the region, I come from Yemen. The average individual, Muslim or non-Muslim, is freer in the US or in the UK or in Europe than he would ever be in Iran. And I think that's very, very important, because the amount of liberties that you do give to your citizens or residents is mainly your main line of defense. It's basically what is protecting you and what's actually giving you defense. Because basically the majority of the Muslims and Arabs and even other nationalities would go to the US or to the UK. They would like to live. They would like to make a living. They would like to have a future for their kids and children. That's not the same when unfortunately, when I come to talk about countries that Iran is supporting. When it comes to Lebanon, Lebanon is in the brink of a collapse. We saw how it propped up Assad in Syria. I mean, Iran by itself is, loosely responsible for the deaths of more than 500,000 people in Syria alone. More than I think any other country have ever killed across the region.
I mean, just on that, I mean, look, it's not about Assad, because obviously many people know that entire rebellion was caused by, and then we're going to go into debate of Assad, about the US, about the military in support and reasoning for Israel. So again, if you're going to go down that road, we're going to end up having a debate about Syria, about Bashar al-Assad, about the fact that this was a country that had peace, generally speaking, peace and tranquility before this destruction in that country. So again, if you want, like, the problem is, like, we're trying to keep the debate focused on this Israel's possible attack on Iran, and vice versa. If you want to talk about that, I'll let you finish your point off.
I mean, I do refute what you just said about Syria. I mean, if you have known many Syrians, they would totally disagree with what you've just have you characterized what happened in Syria.
I know many Syrians who agree with me as well.
Well, I mean, I think the numbers of the deaths and the millions of people have been displaced, I think, speak for itself.
You need to move on, otherwise we will literally go down the Syria route, because I feel very strongly about what you're saying, and I'm trying to keep.
Well, I'll move on to trying to.
We're managing the space pretty fine, Khaleesi. Thank you. Bara, please go ahead.
Sure. The main point I'd like to make is the issue about how you're treating the people who are living within your borders is in my opinion is the main defense. What I'm surprised when it comes to Israel is that they do understand the concept of democracy. There are democracy for one type of people who are living within Israel, but not for others. Which I think, at the long run, Israel needs to decide: does it want to have peace, or does it want to have settlements? Because the only reason why I think countries like Iran, like others, would exploit this ongoing situation in Palestine, the main reason why you'd have the message of people like Hamas resonating across the Middle East, is simply because they don't see that there is peace for the Palestinians. They don't see the Palestinians will be treated equally as the Israelis. And I think that's a very, very basic concept when it comes to liberties, when you talk about how two people living in the same land should be treated in the long future. For me, I support, I think, one state that gives equal rights for everyone. And I think it is a basic, simple principle that I think everyone should basically call for. It is,
Thanks for that,
and I
Bara.
think finally I would say is basically the ongoing situation with Iran is something that I think is going to stay with us, because the motto of how the IRGC operates, it has a long-term strategy of working with non-state actors across the region, and the reality of the situation is that the region is very unstable, and we're going to see a lot of
Thanks for that,
non-state
Bara.
actors operating in that
Thank
vacuum
you
of
for that, Bara. Appreciate
instability.
Appreciate your comments. So I would just want to go to Brother Omar. Brother Omar, obviously, Bara's made a significant number of comments. So I'm going to let you respond to that. There is one question that I had for you, which is that Bara said right at the end that he supports a one-state solution. One-state solution would mean equal rights for everybody. It means no man has more value than another man, irrespective of race, religion, or creed. It doesn't matter if you're a Jew, it doesn't matter if you're a Muslim, it doesn't matter if you're Palestinian, it doesn't matter if you're Israeli, you're going to be equal. That is the tenets of Western democracy and Western civilization. But Bara, so what's your thoughts on that? I know you wanted to comment on that and add in whatever you want.
Yeah, look, I agree. I also agree with the one state solution where everybody has the same rights. They're able to exercise, freedom of religion, freedom of movement, etc., etc. And I agree with that premise, and that's how it should be. But unfortunately, currently within the apartheid state of Israel, that's not the case. Not all citizens have the same rights. So, for example, I'll just give you a couple of examples. If a 1948 Palestinian citizen of Israel, they're called Israeli Arabs by Israelis, were to marry somebody from, let's say, the West Bank or from Gaza, their spouse won't get Israeli citizenship. Or, for example, if a Jewish person wants to marry somebody from another faith, they won't be able to do that unless that person converts to Judaism. Interfaith marriages aren't allowed in Israel unless one of the spouses changes their religion.
I'm really sorry, Omar. This is not a religious discussion, and also what you're saying.
No,
is
I'm
really
talking about.
It's not true. I'm an Israeli. We don't have these laws here. Please continue to the Iran retaliation. I would love to hear what you have to say.
I'm talking about the rights in Israel that are not applied equally for all citizens. Now, people were talking about, Iran being this authoritarian regime, or Iranian regime being this authoritarian regime in the region, when I would argue that, in fact, Iranians overthrew an authoritarian regime in 1979, and they chose Islamic Republic. And in fact, Iran has much more democracy compared with many of the allies that America has in the region. For instance, Iran has a parliament system. It's called Majlis, where people are elected by the people and they represent Iranian voices. And also, Rosenberg said something about women being stoned in Iran. Like, it's propaganda. Like, no women is stoned in Iran. That's not the case. And we talk about Western values and individual freedoms. This individual freedoms is very subjective. So, for example, in the West, a person using the individual liberty and individual freedom can claim to be a woman, whereas they're born a male, and not everybody in the world agrees with that kind of individual freedom. So, projecting our own Western values across the globe is not going to benefit, and that's why American establishment understands that, and that's why they routinely work with dictators, tyrants, who are oppressive and authoritarian in nature. So, and also one last thing, Iran does not go around and destabilize regions. It's America and its American allies that go around around the world and destabilize regions, resulting in millions of people being displaced and millions being killed. Iran hasn't done that. Iran has, in fact, defended its allies. I won't call, a lot of people use the word proxies. They're not Iranian proxies, they're Iranian allies. Iran helps them out. And as a result of that, now Lebanon is free of occupation from Israel. Remember, Israel had occupied Lebanon, and Iran, funded and armed Hezbollah, and as a result of that, today Lebanon is free and is able to defend itself. So Iran has allies.
I'm sorry, Omar. I will not allow misinformation to go on this stage. It's nothing
So
personal.
you won't allow anything.
But no,
No, wait a sec. No, voice. I've allowed
I
like
mean
the other
Israel
side to
occupying
spew
Lebanon.
the
Sully.
biggest lie.
Come on.
Like Rosenberg literally lied about everything. It was Islamophobia what he was saying, and I allowed him to continue on when he was like stoning and all these kind of fake news. But
Okay,
we allowed it. We're just allowing
keep
both
it
sides to make the
focused.
statements.
Let's
Yeah.
keep it focused. I would really love to stay away from the Israel religious.
The problem is, I agree with that, but the problem is when Rosenberg and Barra are making these statements, then it's forced that either we have to stop them or we have to let someone respond. That's the problem.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. I go with you, Sully. Come on.
Thanks.
Go on, Omar. Wrap it up. It's double mute.
Thank you, Sully. So I just want to wrap it up now. I just want to say, Americans or the Westerners have no moral high ground to preach Iran as to what it should or shouldn't do. We should look at our own countries, our own governments, and see what we are doing to our own people and the kinds of problems that we are facing. So I don't think Iran is any worse than many of the other American allies in the regions. That was my point. Thank you.
Exactly. In Iran, women become ministers, and in Saudi Arabia, they actually get stoned, my friend. Don't ever talk about Iranian
Okay,
women.
this is again, please.
Again, I
guys.
don't think that's
Yeah.
like true as well. So
Sam,
let's go.
was next.
Voice, you're gonna go.
Yeah,
try.
yeah, Sam. Sorry, Sam was next. He was waiting for a really long time. Then we're gonna continue with AB, that was extremely patient. So please go ahead, Sam. As far as I know, our next speaker, Sam, he has a military background, so I would love to hear what he has to say, because I cannot hear any more arguments about religion and all that stuff. Go ahead, Sam. Sam, are you there? Going once?
Yeah,
Bottom left hand.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so a couple things. There's been, there's the topic of the space that people are avoiding, it seems like, which is okay. But I just want to hit on it really quickly. So the strike or the counteroffensive or whatever you want to call it, it's up for discussion. It has the key characteristics of the 2021 Operation Martyr Soleimani strike. It seemed like there was a deliberate effort by the IRGC to provide a warning or credible intelligence ahead of time to minimize damage. However, I don't think they're going to get the same response that they got from the U.S. when the U.S. cooled off after killing Qasem Soleimani. And then very quickly, I just want to address a couple things. So in terms of the consulate and the justification of the strike, the three articles that I just want to briefly examine about the strike and the legitimization of the strike are arguably the same as the Qasem Soleimani strike. So first, if the strike took place during an international armed conflict involving Iran, then the targeting of their generals as commanders of the Quds Force and the Iranian military unit would be considered lawful. Second, if Israel was not engaged in international armed conflict with Iran, but these generals are operational leaders or military advisors for the Shia militia groups or some of these other proxy fighting forces within the region that are attacking either Israel or its partners, and they act in self-defense, then the strike is also lawful. And then third, even outside of conflict, with Iran or any of the proxy groups if this general himself posed an immediate threat to Israel or its partner nations. It's once again, the strike falls under what's considered self-defense and justifies the strike. Now, oftentimes, amongst the spaces, we talk about minimalizing civilian casualties. If Israel takes a strike and kills seven individuals that they deem are threatening and minimize civilian casualties, which is, as far as we know, there was none, then I would say they took an extra precaution in this case, as opposed to when we killed Qasem Soleimani, which was about 500 meters from the front door of the Baghdad International Airport. So that is something to take into consideration when they were determining the strike. Was you have a leaders meeting, potentially organizing. Nobody truly knows. However, that was the case when we killed Qasem Soleimani, and that could have been the case when Israel struck these leaders as well. And then very quickly, because Khaleesi was talking about protests and stuff,
Sam, can I ask you a question, like a real question? I'm not trying to a genuine question, because if I understood your argument right, and if I haven't, then just like rephrase it or like restate it. So, because based on your argument, let's say in the American embassy in Britain, if there is somebody who is considered a legitimate target by, let's say, Iran, or let's say even China. Let's say China, actually. Let's make it so it's not relevant to this point. Let's say China. It's seen as a legitimate target by China, and they bomb the embassy based on your argument. That would be fine then.
Yeah, as long as they're acting in self-defense, right? So if there's an imminent threat to that country, its individuals, their territory, then it's considered a justified strike through self-defense. And I've been in several of these facilities, and I was trying to get on here when Michael was on here earlier, but a lot of these diplomatic centers, even as a U.S. service member, you're not permitted to carry a weapon. They're weapons-free zones. The only individuals that are allowed to carry weapons